the edge today.
Actually, we've gone over our usual threshold with one 1999 shark feature, Deep Blue Sea.
Deep Blue Sea.
Which got a 60% on Rotten Tomatoes. The critics' consensus was 60%. The audience score 39%, which was surprising to me that the audience.
The genre stuff is usually flipped, if anything. No, I mean, there's no hard rules, I suppose, but just you see all the time like people like a shark movie more than the critics, or insert monster or disaster here, perhaps. And then is 60 what am I trying to say? The worst fresh score you could have?
Correct.
Yeah.
If it was 59%, it would be the little squishy green.
Squish tomato. It's a thin line between squish and fresh. Now it's as fresh as The Godfather. As in this, I know there's different numbers, but they have the same tomato, don't they?
The tomato? Can't do it.
I know, because I said tomato to be an idiot, but there's a tomato meter, I think.
There it is.
I love that became the thing. That's almost perfect in a way, right? I'm sure it's been talked about. Like, if you choose to discuss this stuff seriously, you are stuck talking about tomatoes, and there's a beauty to that. Like, you should sound a little silly.
It is Mad Magazine-ish that when it's bad, it's like a green, slimy splat.
Yeah.
I should have asked you this at the top, perhaps, as a nice segue, but it's only episode 3. We're still getting our bearings.
Thanks, by the way, for checking out episodes 1, 2, and or 3.
Yeah, whether you are a long-time listener or you just checked this out for the first time.
Maybe you're Deep Blue Sea director Renny Harlin.
Maybe.
When you're like,
maybe you've got your Google alerts on.
Yeah, that's right.
But anyway, how do you feel about shark movies as a genre? It's a limited genre.
It's still, yeah, right, exactly. But it's a specific thing. But this isn't news to you. But for the sake of good radio, I will tell you that I like them. My wife and I enjoy them. But yeah, I mean, I think like any I'd say a fresh tomatoes worth number of moviegoers really love Jaws, right?
Oh,
a high
of course.
90% of them. So there's Jaws. And then, there's stuff like this. And then, I mean, I almost equate it to, we talked about this just being like, it is what it is. We both have strong feelings for this movie in the sense of it just is what it is. It's a genre. It's a shark movie. When it's executed well, it kind of hits some tropes, subverts some others. But it's a little bit just like, it's like listening to a kind of music you like, where it's like, you could argue on the merits of it, but at the end of the day, it's like, I just like this stuff, though. So
Same.
Whatever you have to say about it is going to come to the filter of like, I'm in the bag for it, I think.
Absolutely. I've always had an interest in shark stuff. Like, there's the Goosebumps books.
Was there a good shark one?
Yeah, I can't remember.
There's a lot of Goosebumps.
This would have been a good thing. This would be a good thing to Google. But there's just one that's got like a big fucking, the cover of it is a big scary fish animal, and then there's a little dinky guy in there with it. And I grew up in a lot of my formative years, as you know, but just for the sake of good radio, to borrow a phrase.
Keep it. Hang on to it.
My dad was in the Air Force when I was a kid, and I spent a few years growing up in Hawaii. I think I moved there when I was like 3, and moved when I was about to turn 8, something like that. But so the proximity to the ocean always made me.
Oh yeah.
Like I liked Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
But I also liked shit about sharks.
It's interesting. I never thought. I mean, I just had sharks cool, but the relationship when you're on the ocean or surrounded by it in a way, I grew up in Michigan, surrounded by lakes, so there was no, it didn't hit home. Sharks might well have been zombie movies.
Sure.
So I didn't have that. You know what I mean?
Oh, interesting.
I mean, but that being said, I am aware that sharks are real, so that does inherently make them more terrifying. I just think sharks are like, it was such a gift from the heavens to have that fin sticking out of the water, to be as an honest-to-God sign of dread in nature as it is. It's just such a great thing to, like, play with cinematically.
It's a primal fear, and the interesting thing about sharks is it's like no matter how many Discovery Channel documentaries or little TV series things that there are about sharks that tell you that they don't like the taste of humans. They aren't just gonna decide. They aren't just gonna decide to start going on a murder rampage. There's still that innate fear of sharks, and that's where That's what Deep Blue Sea does correctly. Is they actually do incentivize the sharks to be fucking No, they're out to get you.
Yeah,
these
they're
are.
out to get
Did
you.
we talk about the overall plot?
No, we should just quickly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so Deep Blue Sea is about a group of scientists that work at a big underwater facility that are trying to find a cure for Alzheimer's by way of experiments on sharks, because sharks don't show signs of degenerative brain disease as they age. They don't get cancer. I don't know if that's true at all. That according to the scientists in the movie, that's what we're operating under.
I dumbed it down. You did a great job explaining it. I dumbed it down to they're trying to get the sauce out of the brain of sharks, right?
Yeah.
There's a goo, if you will.
There's a super special goo
Mm-hmm.
that we need to harvest
Yeah.
in order to cure Alzheimer's in humans. But the problem with that is that sharks just got these little dinky brains, you see. They don't have enough goo.
Yeah.
They have a donut's worth of goo.
Yeah.
And so
Right. Bigger brains.
they do some evil scientist shit and give the sharks bigger brains, but there's a side effect. Smart sharks.
Now they have vengeance, or not even vengeance. Maybe it's vengeance, but
I think it's vengeance.
It's vengeance. Maybe is it on behalf of their entire species? Are they? Here's the question: do they have big enough brains to understand the whole what humans and sharks, what we've done to them and stuff? You know.
Well, they don't have access to books and shit.
Yeah, you're right.
But they do know.
Books.
They know enough to realize that
I wish they had.
these humans, these creepy humans in these lab coats, are they're experimenting on us, and they're our captors.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm just laughing about if they had these smart sharks and they were reading them Jaws and stuff, and they were just squirming around in a tank.
Getting all pissed off. So we lived at Hickam Air Force Base on Oahu, and there was a public beach nearby called Bellows, I think, and one summer I heard that there was a shark sighting or something, but then all of the Jaws shit goes running through my little brain, and I always just pictured shark infested waters.
Yeah.
It didn't stop me from going in there. Oddly though, afraid of pools.
Oh.
Anytime I was swimming in a pool, it just occurred to me what if there was a fucking shark in here? Wouldn't that be scary?
Well, one of the things that's so scary about it is obviously there's a ton of animals in the animal kingdom that are kill crazy and have fucking horns and fangs and what have yous. But then the added thing of you're in water and you can't move worth a shit. It's so scary. You're just this little it's you're just so fucked.
Yeah. So Deep Blue Sea on July 30th, 1999, director Renny Harlin blessed.
I like him.
The cinematic landscape with Deep Blue Sea, starring Saffron Burrows, Thomas Jane, Samuel L. Jackson, Michael Rappaport, and one LL Cool J. Also honorable mention, Aida Turturro.
Of course. Janice Soprano. Who's Saffron Burrows? Who is that?
That
in the movie.
The British doctor, the main character.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Well, it's kind of an ensemble.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay.
But she's the lead scientist.
I mean, hey, no disrespect.
And Samuel L. Jackson plays... he's the big suit money rolling this whole bankrolling this whole thing. He's
the suit.
So he's kind of coming in, and there's this looming thing of he wants to stop the funding because it's so expensive, or they're not making progress, or some shit like that.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was saying. I forget what I got distracted by. She comes in and throws the newspaper, and whatever the newspaper says is something like. Yeah, losing funding or, sharks are out of control. I forget what, because I literally wrote down, you can't really throw a newspaper on a guy's desk anymore. That's you used to really be able to, barge in and you could, skip the whole first
Have you seen
part
the paper?
of whatever you were going to do or fight about or talk. You could just throw it in there and be like, what the fuck is this? I gotta look at it,
Oh, I see. So here's what happens.
He's gonna bark.
I'm not sure how much of the dogs we're cutting out, so apologies for all the dog noises that you might hear. When the movie opens with a classic, lots of young people in bikinis and other
pretty steamy double date out on the lake.
Steamy double date. There's music. They're on a boat at night for some reason.
It's very the classic. It could be Friday the 13th if they were in the woods. It
could be
Blue
Jaws.
Sea, or out in a nice boat made for four.
The beginning of Jaws. There's something.
It was. I think they're at a party and a guy and a girl kind of mosey off. Well, the girl more than mosey. She sprints off, and the guy is like, "Hang on, man." That's why he doesn't get out there.
Right. Okay.
Just her, but yeah.
So they're out all partying on the boat, and what happens? But they're attacked by one of these sharks that ends up being our super genius sharks. And you might think there's definitely a sense of foreboding. I mean, you can't be having so much fun in a horror movie without something bad happening to you. And then so they're having a good time, and their good time is interrupted when there's big something large is smashing into the boat.
They're just anchored. They're not hurting anyone.
No,
they're just trying to. I think they're doing the responsible thing because they decided to drink wine. So you pull over and you anchor, and then things happened. They probably departed as a sea crew, and then they got romantic out there. I don't know, but no. Yeah, you watch the movie, and we're careful about spoilers, but this is the beginning of a movie, so we'll talk about it, right?
Sure.
You watch the movie and go, oh, these people are fucking toast.
Of course.
And they're not toast.
Right. You fully expect that. They get knocked in the water. Turns out it's one of the super smart sharks has escaped the facility, but then enter our hero.
I guess so.
One of our heroes.
Lowercase h hero. Thomas Jane.
Jane.
Who, for lack of a better guy, main character of the movie.
Yeah.
We'll say this. The main human character of the movie.
He's the shark whisperer of the movie. He's Carter. He plays Carter Blake.
Thomas Jane playing Carter Blake. Maybe the other way around.
He wrangles the shark away from...
He saves the day. He
comes in, saves the day.
Is it like a harpooning situation?
Yeah, it is a harpooning situation. And then... But that incident causes financial backers to be all pissed off, so then they send corporate executive Russell Franklin, played by Samuel L. Jackson, to go see what the fuck's going on at the facility.
I like some people are in the position that, you're kind of overreacting about the shark attack. I guess it's the pushback he experiences, maybe, right?
Nothing happened,
man. What, are you going to shut us down because the shark attacked some people?
Because the shark escaped and then got back in there somehow?
Because we made it smart as hell?
Yeah. Well, I guess I didn't get back in there somehow, because whatever. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So, a couple things worth mentioning here. Samuel L. Jackson was initially supposed to play the role that LL Cool J plays. Mm-hmm. And he plays sort of like a chef that works at the underwater facility. But Samuel L. Jackson's team didn't like the idea of him playing a chef. So then Renny Harlin created the role. But the DVD commentary, I do know, is Renny Harlin and Samuel L. Jackson. And apparently this little tidbit came from there.
Okay, so
I have no further information.
You can really dive in if you want. If you're done listening to our Deep Blue Sea podcast and need some more, you can put on the thing with the commentary and listen, and you can see if they fight about it, or if he gets ornery when the notion of him playing a chef comes up. But then LL comes in and kills it. Yeah,
and that's what's interesting. Garnered mixed reviews. We were joking about this earlier before we were recording. Like, doesn't technically every single movie have mixed reviews? For the odds that they're all one way or the other. But even the negative reviews all praised, or the ones that I came across anyway, all the negative reviews still praised LL Cool J's performance. LL Cool J, his character's name is Preacher, I believe. Yeah. He also, it ended up being great casting on Renny Harlin's behalf because he also supplies the title.
The title track. The title. It's the same as Jackson wasn't going to do that.
Deepest, Bluest.
My heart's like a shark fin.
Yeah.
Shark's fin.
Which is a it's the end credits song, and it's just perfect.
He didn't already have that song. Let's be real.
It's the perfect song for Deep Blue Sea.
It is really good. It ends, and I mean, it really is. It sounds like 1999 in a good way. LL Cool J. It was decades into his rap career by then, but was still putting out hits. And I think I don't know the exact timeline, but certainly transitioning into acting at that point, but he is in that cool space to kind of be in both a little bit. Whereas a lot of people now probably know him mostly from acting because, he acted well after I think he was putting out a ton of music. I may be mistaken. That's my impression.
As we talked about before, he's so funny on that one episode of 30 Rock. He's one episode, I think. I don't think he ever comes back, but and it's pretty early in the series, and it's still just like one of the funniest.
And we're talking about where it's rarefied air, and we spent a lot of time talking about this, and we might dive into it a little bit here, but so because of that, you get a really great so it sounds like 1999 in a great way. Another thing that was just happening right then, mostly because of him and Will Smith, were people rapping title tracks to movies, which is just we thought a little bit about it if there's much of a history there. It's few and far between. It's really rare. If you want to say a few fun ones you came up with, surprisingly,
trying to do research on what title tracks have been performed by people who act in the movie.
And sing about the title of the movie.
Maybe I just wasn't using the right keyword searches, I don't know, but I really couldn't find the information I was looking for. But what I was able to piece together, Dolly Parton sings 9 to 5, of course, from 9 to 5.
And then you hear these, you go, of course, but there's just so many movies to consider.
Great song, great movie.
Yeah.
Prince sings Purple Rain. Well, he sings a lot of fucking songs.
Exactly, and I bet, I wonder if there's some other examples like that's a a film that is also there. There's an album. If there's things that are sort of like rolled up like that, it's just like something. But versus then Will Smith is the obvious king of it because we went Men in Black into Wild Wild West is just unheard of, uncanny. He's ridiculous. John Wayne could never, or any other movie star you like.
And it wouldn't surprise me to know that even more modern movies he's done the same thing for. Yeah, right, yeah. But, I mean...
Did he rap a sad one for The Pursuit of Happiness? I never saw that movie.
I did see it. I don't remember.
I doubt he did.
Oh, so Renny Harlin was so taken by LL Cool J, much like the eventual critics would be. I found an interview from some newspaper. What did you say when you... I found it, and it looks like microfilm on the computer. And
yeah, she looked like she was in here working on a case. The old newspaper. You go to the library and you used to dial it with your hand and actually go through film. I know you were using the internet, but it sure looked like you were solving an X-file or something.
But then that made me feel old too, because just a movie that I have loved my whole life is old enough.
You find newspaper scrappings of it.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was a 99 interview, July 31st. So I think one day after the movie came out with the Reading Eagle. Renny Harlin just talked about the movie and talked about being surprised specifically by LL Cool J. So I'll just read the quote from him here. I'm not going to do his Finnish accent either, but... I wanted to have one character who brings a lot of warmth and humor to the film without it being joke-type humor. And I'd seen him in several films and felt he had this great charisma, so I met with him and was really very impressed and forced the studio into hiring him. And he turned out to be a huge asset to the film.
Everyone's favorite part. Or a lot of people's, own thing to say, yeah.
And apparently he was going to get killed off, and they changed that. Because he also says he was originally going to be shark meat quite early on. But
good.
But he was so good, we kept him around.
There's more than one piece of information, so it sounds like they were making this movie up as they went.
I know.
They keep changing things. He can stick around. Hey, Samuel Jackson, we got a part. No, we have a part. Come back tomorrow.
Yeah, which is why I opted to not talk about the writers at all, because it sounds like the script was bought much earlier than the movie ended up being made, and they rewrote it.
On the fly.
Yeah.
I do know it was like a couple, the Powerses or something. It was a very... It just reminded me of somewhere between like Eastbound and Down and maybe like Homer's alias of Max Power. It just did that whole
Donna and Wayne Powers.
That was it, Donna and Wayne Powers. Yeah.
And apparently it was much more of an espionage type move, like military espionage.
What's going on in this lab? Yeah. You hear what they're doing? They're doing shark sauce in the brains. Yeah.
I want to see that movie with the exact same cast.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Oh, also worth mentioning. We talked about when we rewatched this movie that maybe the two weakest actors are the two. If you had to pick two main characters, it's Saffron Burrows and Thomas Jane, because you have. I mean, we just talked about LL Cool J, Samuel Jackson, but then you also have Stellan Skarsgård. Mm-hmm. He's great,
great actor, and Michael Rappaport, who I grew up appreciating his supporting roles in films like this and other stuff. Like he's a good. I can't think of too many movies I've seen him carry, but like if you throw him on the team, he comes off the bench. He's a good, you know what I mean? I always just, and he's always playing a very Michael Rappaport-esque character, but I just find there's often room for that energy, right?
Maybe because it's new information, it's recent information to me, but all I could think about when watching him on screen was that he was Natasha Lyonne's landlord that kicked her out. You remember me telling you?
Yeah.
I was recently reading Natasha Lyonne's Wikipedia page because we've been watching Poker Face, which is great, by the way. It's getting way too good reviews for us to ever talk about in any other capacity.
That's right.
But apparently in the early to mid 2000s, he had to evict her because of too many other complaints from tenants.
Wow, what a poker face-esque thing that would happen to her character or something, perhaps.
Getting evicted by character actor.
He's a whole thing, man. Michael Rappaport, hopefully nothing I said about enjoying him in random 90s movies like fucking Higher Learning and whatever else.
Oh, his weird politics?
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever weirdness he's up to, I
we can't speak to any of that. We're just talking about the guy.
Look, I know he can be kind of a goofball online. I feel comfortable saying that. And I will not say much more.
Great. You know more than I do.
I just blanked too. I can't even think of that many movies I liked him in, but they're out there. Oh, True Romance would be another one, I think.
Yeah, okay.
I was going to say, too, LL Cool J is this thing, too. Another thing that happens in movies in the 90s, and I have exactly 2 examples. This being one of them, but on a nice big ship, the cooks, if you've seen Under Siege and Deep Blue Sea, the cooks are like the craziest, realest motherfuckers that will, secretly save the day.
Which is probably why they wanted Sam Jackson to play that character initially.
That makes sense.
Although if he was going to get killed, who knows?
It's like, no, dude, we want you to be like a... Oh, yeah, that's true. Maybe it was more about that than it being a cook. Maybe it was like a cook that was supposed to get fucking killed off in the first thing. Also, it's a bit odd. We were talking about... Sorry not to jump around, but he also... Do you want to talk about how he said about the tongue-in-cheek?
Oh, yeah. So, from that same microfish interview that I found.
Before my partner left and said, hey, try to get some sleep tonight.
I downed a glass of dry-ass whiskey, and then I read this. He says, again, a quote from Renny Harlin, I felt that in recent years, horror films have become a sort of bastard child in Hollywood, as they're usually low budget and done tongue-in-cheek. I wanted to take the genre back to the big-scale movie-making level of films like The Exorcist, The Shining, and Jaws, for which you have great actors and great production values, and you do it seriously. You're not winking at the audience. You're trying to scare them to death. Now... Man... reading that quote after having had an affection for Deep Blue Sea for a very long time, I was really surprised by that.
Yeah, it's like I can get behind someone saying that, but it doesn't really, like, because we didn't talk about this example, and this is where I just got there. He's talking about doing tongue-in-cheek stuff and then everything. It's just like, LL Cool's got a fucking bird on his shoulder, man. Right?
Yeah, he's got a pet parrot with him the whole time.
Hey, and the bird's name is even kind of like
Bird.
The lack of cleverness is the joke of it a bit, whatever you say. But so that's pretty tongue-in-cheek. I don't know if we talked about the other big obvious fucking... It's a gag.
Maybe when it gets further into the podcast, we're gonna probably talk about... We have to talk about a spoiler because it's a big staple in pop culture. It's
a great moment of all that.
But suffice to say, if you don't want to listen to a spoiler, that it very much goes against the I'm not going to do a tongue-in-cheek thing that Renny Harlin is talking about.
It doesn't really track, and then it's funny because we were talking about that, but then just now as we were recording, I was like also thinking about the bird, where it was like, okay, really get the fuck out of here with that.
That's a great point.
But no, that said, I do like Renny Harlin. I understand it's like he does a certain kind of person. He makes big fucking movies, and of course it's easy to say that they're devoid of certain, whether it be intellectual merit or this or that or whatever.
Subtext
sometimes, sure. Making up as they go, probably. But I haven't seen ever Cutthroat Island. I feel bad because that's just one of those movies that just took like an all-time beating.
It's a
famously like. I read about it a lot. Like, I read a book about all the famous, like, it's like makes the book of the 10 biggest fucking, like, infamous money losers in history. It's just insane. And movies, I don't know. But you do wonder if there wasn't something he learned and he made Deep Blue Sea. There was, it still sounds like it's always a nightmare no matter what to make a water movie. But, like, he had experience on a bit expensive water movie. So maybe he had, like, a second whack at it. And this is, you know what I mean? Like, came out better for it is what I wonder.
Well, it's interesting you bring up Cutthroat Island because I guess this was sort of like a do or die type situation for Renny Harlin as a filmmaker because he hadn't made a commercially successful movie since Cliffhanger in 1993.
Which was fucking like up my alley. I was 9 years old.
I've never seen
fucking hell, that movie blew me away. I loved it. It's a big fucking huge explosion ass movie, and if you take the ride, I think you're in good hands generally speaking.
Yeah.
But something about Cutthroat Island, I forget all the reasons, but it just wasn't there, right?
Here's everything you need to know about Renny Harlin as a filmmaker. Even in the ocean setting shark movie, there are multiple sustained explosions that go on for like 15 seconds.
There are scenes where it's sort of literally raining fire. They're climbing up a like a passage,
maintenance
like a
ladder,
like a ladder up like a vertical passage, and there's just
it's in like an elevator shaft,
and there's water on the bottom rising, and there's flames. There's little and then you see the behind the scenes stuff. There's literally a guy just like dropping these like flaming pieces of paper at the actors.
And that's the thing.
What a great day at work.
You remind me of... So this movie was... The sharks are... They combined footage of real sharks and animatronic sharks and CGI. And what holds up the best are the practical effects. The animatronic shark still looks fine.
Yeah. And that's a strategy that I think is like Jurassic Park does the same thing. It's not the exact same, but it's that mix. Know when you do one, and if like I heard a great example when someone smarter than me put it, is like you see Alan Grant on the Stegosaurus's stomach. That's so real that your brain kind of spots a little bit of the CG later, maybe, right? Where it's just like, oh, the dinosaurs are back or whatever, and it's just like that same. When you do it, it's a real. It's almost like a sleight of hand, whatever you'd say. It's there's a trickery to it,
and that's what's sort of cool is. Because they use this a fun fact about the animatronic shark. First of all, it took the crew 8 months to construct them, which I thought was substantial. That seems like a lot of work. And the shark supervisor, I can't remember his name, but that's what he was building.
These guys build a shark all day. Ow! Throw it out! God damn it!
The shark supervisor said that they used airplane technology, hydraulic technology, to make the sharks. And all of the cast and like the little behind the scenes featurettes that we watched remarked about how they didn't believe it was a machine because it moved.
It has its odd like lifelike movements, right? Not just like a herky jerkiness. And so it's funny to go 8 months building a shark, and in my brain it's like a Lego set, and they have the head, and then they have the fin, and then around month 8 they finish. It's not that. It's that they're making this robotic thing that really moves like eerily lifelike, and they're
studying sharks and making sure that their animatronic shark actually mimics a real thing. And another little just tidbit about the way Renny Harlin's brain works that I like. The animatronic shark used in Jaws was 25 feet long, so Renny Harlin decided there should be 26 feet long. And it is.
Yeah, Jesus. Like some people might go the other way. They might go 24 out of respect,
Well, these are supposed to be like fucking big ass shark.
This is like, suck it, Jaws. But also it makes sense. Everything evolves and escalates and everything. So a foot longer. Not that it makes a discernible difference, but.
Oh, and then sort of an interesting thing about maybe the casting choices is that Renny Harlin said that he wanted to cast the same way as Alien, where you had no idea who was going to die and who was going to survive, and so the combination of the sort of unnamed actors and a star. Samuel Jackson, who he said anchors the whole piece.
Mm-hmm. He really does.
Absolutely.
It is. I did think about Alien. It reminds me a lot of stuff that I like. Not to be a dick, but maybe stuff I like a little bit more. but it does remind me of Alien because it's this kind of lab thing. Only this one's in the water. But then you get the crew and you realize, most of them are going to make it. Who's going to make it and stuff. Reminds me of Tremors a little bit, which I love because there's like 3 or 4 of them swimming around and it becomes like a body count. Like, okay, we got rid of one more. Okay, how many are left? In a lot of ways, it reminds me, watching it this time through, it's very much like it feels like a video game in the sense of there's like action scenes. I mean, there's a lot of movies, of course, but then there's like the plot stuff. Felt like at a certain point, it feels almost like a cutscene where they're starting to talk about, okay, we'll cut the lever, and then we'll flood level 2, and like I don't know what they're talking about, but I get it fine. I'll be fine when we get through the thing. I'll know what's going on. There's a little bit of that, and I mean, I'm sure the movie does a fine job of explaining what's actually going on. It's just about the it becomes this thing of literally like flooding levels and moving around. I was like, I lost it a little bit, but I'm okay. I think I'll be okay.
I trust you. And it clocks in at an hour 40, and it moves. I don't think it drags at all. And that's maybe it could be even a little shorter, but I'm not mad at it. Yeah. I think the pacing is good. And it did end up being quite commercially successful. The budget, I'm not sure why the estimation is so varied, but between 60 and 82 million.
Okay.
Worldwide gross of 165.
Tight. Hey, not bad.
And it opened around the time Blair Witch Project and The House on... Or The Haunting, The Haunting.
Mm-hmm. I say that I think Sixth Sense was that year as well, so it's also interesting where these movies are probably largely getting made at the same time. So if he's talking about movies, he probably wasn't talking about those movies. But when he says like, "I want to make mine like less tongue in cheek than other horror movies," and you look at the other movies that came out that year that actually sort of are less tongue in cheek, maybe.
Is he talking about Scream? Because
maybe, yeah,
Scream is
and then
great.
From there, yeah, but then that maybe spawned this wave of like. Inside nudgy stuff, and he was trying to go back to the creature feature.
Sure,
that's what I think.
Well, it makes me feel a little defensive if he's putting down Scream with all of these comments.
Listen, we think he might be listening to this episode based on his Google alerts.
Renny Harlin, listen, I liked Long Kiss Goodnight.
Long Kiss Goodnight.
Kundun, I liked it.
Marty, Kundun, I liked it.
Actually, Long Kiss Goodnight is a fucking bonkers movie. If you've not seen it, it's probably within the range.
I think I looked. I think it is, and I was saying before too that it's not only it came up because we watched Deep Blue Sea via a Blu-ray,
right,
with a Samuel Jackson theme, a 3-pack of Deep Blue Sea, Long Kiss Goodnight, and Snakes on a Plane. But I noticed it's 2/3 of a Renny Harlin triple pack.
A bargain at any price.
Really good. I don't know what we paid for it, but it was a steal, clearly. But as a kid, I was really taken by how fucking funny that movie was, and as a kid too. Samuel L. Jackson connecting all this stuff even further and going back to just like Pulp Fiction's one of the movies that really cemented my like really getting into movies. He was everywhere in the 90s, but not in like this actor's played out overexposed or sometimes that's a sign of like a career trajectory that's like, oh, they're just taking what they can get or whatever. It's like, no, like he just showed up in all kinds of stuff.
Crushed
I'm not saying
everything.
It was bulletproof, but like goddamn was so much of it. And then even you realize, then you do go back, he's in fucking Goodfellas. You talk about the decade that Samuel Jackson had in the 90s, from Goodfellas, Pulp Fiction, capping it off with fun stuff like Deep Blue Sea, which the kids are still talking about today, if we consider ourselves kids, which we shouldn't.
We're someone's kids.
We're someone's kids. That's what I think.
I was, you just said Goodfellas, which reminded me of a thought I had before, which is if Jaws is the Godfather...
Yeah.
Then for me, Deep Blue Sea is Goodfellas. Mm-hmm. Because while Godfather, it's like you should almost if somebody asks you your favorite mob movie or crime movie, whatever, it's almost like, well, yeah, given the best one is probably The Godfather, but your favorite can be something else.
Kind of like the academic answer or something, or if it's just like I've always thought my version of that is like if you ask who the funniest person on The Simpsons is, you say, well, it's Homer, obviously, but the fun conversation is who's the second funniest.
Right.
That's really the fun thing to dive into, maybe.
Similarly to who's your favorite character on The Sopranos besides Tony, of course.
Besides Sylvia, no, I'm kidding. Besides Artie Bucco, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah, besides everybody. Right.
I'm gonna say, we talked a little bit about it. I just wanted before I forget because I thought this is an observation I made that I thought was worthwhile. With Thomas Jane, this was 99. I know from working at a movie theater for a couple of years, his version of The Punisher, when he played The Punisher, came out in either 03 or 04. I think maybe 04. He was in The Mist, which I'm actually a huge fan of that movie, and I think he's pretty good in there.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, but nevertheless, he was a guy, Thomas Jane, like, we said, he doesn't necessarily keep up with the acting and the charisma and whatever. He's okay. He's not glaringly awful. It's not like where'd they fucking get this guy. He's okay. There's a lot of guys that have been kind of good, and they kind of get a look, and you get a couple movies, and then the world kind of goes, all right, I feel mean, but it's people like the Chris O'Donnell and Jason Biggs of the world. Chris O'Donnell played Robin in the Batman and Robin movie, and was just like kind of a 90s version of it. And then I feel like they gave him a few movies and it didn't pan out. We were talking about Taylor Kitsch earlier, off Friday Night Lights, and then Mr. Battleship. He was going to be the movie star, and then Battleship, John Carter.
There's some bad choices. Yeah. But Battleship's one of those movies where we occasionally will see a movie and then joke like, why didn't anybody call us and ask if they should make this?
Should call us.
Could have saved you all that money.
Call us
Told you nobody wants the fucking Battleship movie.
Yeah.
Enjoy these naval exercises, Hopper. They're likely to be your last.
So the underwater facility, as they're traveling by plane to it, Samuel L. Jackson's character remarks that it looks like Alcatraz for boats, and I thought that's a perfect description.
It's pretty good, yeah, absolutely. And with that, it is a shark movie. Like you wouldn't confuse it for Jaws. No one's saying it's better than Jaws, but if you like this sort of excessive genre of movie, and I do greatly,
I do too.
it is a shark movie that like figured out how to make like helicopter crashes and shit happen. And I'm not...
You guys.
I don't... Okay, it's not like, crash equals good, that's all I need. But, like, it is just, like, that's pretty creative as far as, like, the, again, the excess of it all.
And that's what's the thing about... What frustrates me, and maybe it's part of the reason why we ended up doing a podcast like this, is I don't know what critics want out of movies sometimes. Like, when you see a trailer for this, or you even hear, like... They're making a fucking blockbuster popcorn shark movie. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly... what you get out of this.
Yeah.
It maybe I thought Renny Harlin was a little bit more self-aware than he ultimately was with his remarks about anti-tongue-in-cheekness or whatever.
There is that bit in that quote where it's like, dude, I appreciate that you're working hard and taking movies seriously, but it's like, I want to make a movie like Jaws or The Shining or something. Okay.
Jaws, The Shining, and Deep Blue Sea. Peas in a pod. But, even with that, the critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes is Deep Blue Sea is no Jaws, but action fans seeking some toothy actions can certainly do and almost have done far worse for B-movie thrills.
That's well said, well put. Yeah, and I think that's the thing. And there's something good about that, because who cares what they think, except for the fact that it kind of dictates what shows we do. But when you do the legacy of Deep Blue Sea in this moment is 60%, which is like really, really sneaking in,
Yeah,
the door was closing and they kind of looped it in there, and you're like, hey, critically acclaimed. Hello, nice to see.
I gamed the system a little bit with our, but fuck it. Whatever.
Other movies are looking at Deep Blue Sea, going, "How'd you get here? You're here.
Who let that guy in?"
That's right. So good. I think we should celebrate that. Again, it doesn't matter, but just score one when you sneak in the back door like that.
I don't know if we've entered the part of the podcast where I can talk about spoilers, but
yeah, we should, because
okay.
So yeah, I have something I was gonna say I liked about the ending.
Okay.
And then
before that we can talk about the other little thing.
But
so
before
if you don't want any spoilers about characters that may or may not make it in this dwindling party survival shark movie, thank you for listening so far. But if you don't give a fuck, welcome.
Yeah.
And we don't think, and by the way, I don't think that necessarily knowing these things will mean that you won't enjoy the movie if you haven't seen it yet and you are listening to this. Right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway. So, Deep Blue Sea, it's maybe not like, would you say it's a cult movie?
Is it?
Maybe not. Maybe where it is, it's like, in the very small genre of shark movies, it's like maybe regarded as number 2. Like I said, if Jaws is always going to be number 1 because it's the prototype, but Deep Blue Sea is number 2 largely.
If it's not a cult classic, it's like warmly regarded, I think, by today's. I think it's appreciated in time a little bit. Yeah.
That being said, the Meg, I think, could have been in the conversation if it had been rated R, which it sadly was not. I liked that movie though.
I liked The Shallows, right?
Yeah, that was good.
Good one.
But one of the things that sort of also lives on, besides Deep Blue Sea being like maybe the second best shark movie, or second favorite shark movie, whatever it is Sam Jackson's death scene is regarded as one of the best in movie that you might see in a movie.
I mean, it's really up there. I don't know how you would do it better as far as it's like the same. It's like the flip on maybe the beginning of the movie when you say these people are toast. There's no part of you that thinks when you're watching the movie for the first time. I would think most people are not going, he's about to get it.
Absolutely. So
in a movie where people are getting it.
the super smart sharks, they figure out a way to basically fuck up the facility so that it's being flooded. So they're trying to get out of it, and there's water everywhere, and it really seems like all is lost. Like their numbers are down, things are fucking bleak. They really don't know what to do to get out of this alive. So then, as everybody's starting to turn on each other, Sam Jackson sort of pops up and gives like a hey, like we can't fall apart. Gives a big rah speech, and in the middle of it's literally after he says, now here's what we're gonna like, he launches into the plan. Now that I've rallied the troops and made everybody feel motivated, here's what we do. And then at that moment, a shark pops up out of nowhere and rips him apart. It's incredible.
Now you've seen how bad things can get and how quick they can get that way. Well, they can get a whole lot worse. So we're not going to fight anymore. We're going to pull together and we're going to find a way to get out of here. First, we're going to seal off this
And like Mark just said, no part of you is expecting that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think now maybe it's like it's just kind of out there as a thing.
Yeah,
and which is why we felt
good.
Comfortable talking about it here.
Right. It's the whole thing is it's a 20-year-old movie roughly, and also just like
it's a shark movie.
It's like a shark movie. Like Chappelle's show had like joked about it and his impression of him and everything. Like it's just kind of been bandied about before this, so I say we go for it. But
and we'd be remiss to not discuss it for people that have seen it.
It's like the best moment too, or one of them at least.
This is exactly what we were talking about before when Renny Harlin said.
Yeah, it's not tongue in cheek. Like this is a huge.
So what is it if it's not supposed to be funny?
Yeah, because it's a huge laugh, and
yeah.
the character has been. I don't know. He's expendable, right? Like I don't know. It's not the most heartbreaking loss in a way. Maybe your mileage varies on that, but go ahead.
He's the biggest name in the movie, so nowhere you're expecting it.
That's very expected.
But it's also, so it's like Janet Leigh in Psycho, but instead of Sam Jackson's character getting killed off really early, or like Drew Barrymore in Scream,
mm-hmm.
they hold it to like halfway through the movie. Yeah. You're really not expecting it at that point.
Yeah, and it's so well executed that even though I know it's happening, it's such a not overly long, but it's a decently long thing, and I watch it now knowing it's going to happen, and I don't remember exactly what moment it happens. So it's still like I'm obviously not surprised in the same way. But it's like exciting now or something, just because you get to kind of watch knowing, you know the thing's going to come, so you can watch it differently. Like, yeah, it's really awesome.
Totally. But there are other funny moments in it too, because, well, I'm a big believer in horror movies kind of sort of needing to have a horror or a humor element to them, mm-hmm. Or at least that being a really enjoyable thing. But at one point, Stellan Skarsgård, I can't fucking say his name. Mm-hmm. That guy's character is sort of smoking a cigarette by a shark that we think is out cold because it's been tranquilized.
Yeah, they caught it.
Sedated.
They sedated it
to grab some of its brain goo. You see?
Yeah, they got it on board. And mission accomplished is the vibe in the room.
Yeah, right. And then he's just standing by the fucking shark pool, trying to have a smoke, and then the shark out of nowhere just like grabs his arm off. Just
a really good effect, yeah.
Because it's the animatronic shark.
Yeah.
It's so fucking cool.
And yeah, it's funny to think about, was his arm just in reach because he was smoking a cigarette? Because then that just escalates everything. Him having that cigarette arguably sets everything into motion.
Is that at the beginning of Act 2, maybe?
Right. That's the plot point that happens there that swings it into action is fucking Stellan lights a cig, and the shark is already having a bad one, and the last thing he needs is smoke going into his fucking eye. And so there's only one thing you do there, and that's take the whole arm off.
And what's sort of interesting is that we learn that they're doing dubious scientific practices. They're not supposed to be giving the sharks giant brains. Yeah, because that's violating some convention.
Yeah.
So
a treaty we've made with sharks.
Arguably, a lot of the bad things that happens to the team is maybe karmically earned. Mm-hmm. And really just the escalation of things that happens to the Skarsgård's character is just absurd.
Because of the smart sharks, they're able to do things with that body to kind of... You see it in other horror movies, like, where they'll do something fucked up to kind of taunt the other, the people, like, hey, here's your friend, fuck you. But this is the first time I think a shark's done it, where, not to just describe the movie, but...
It's in the trailer.
Yeah, he brings his friend back to him, and he throws him through the fucking window, essentially.
It's... If you're not supposed to find it funny when a shark throws a fucking guy at a window...
Yeah.
I don't know what you're supposed to think.
We've all seen some number of shark sequences in movies that the guy or girl gets bit, they start jerking around the water, they die, they get some... Never seen the shark bring the person back. That's unique. That stands out almost as much as Sam's death scene.
Absolutely. And the problem The thing that makes me so sad about loving shark movies is that so many of them are made to be bad on purpose.
Mm.
And I think they miss the point.
You're talking about all those ones with the tornado full of them?
Yeah. Well, not just the fucking Sharknadoes, but all of the shitty Thanksgiving or whatever, movies that are supposed to be just they're going for the Mystery Science Theater vibe.
Yeah.
But they completely miss the spirit. It's like how the people from Jackass talk about their imitators. Mm-hmm. They don't feel threatened by them anymore because they don't capture the spirit of the thing.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I think. It's like you think that you're mimicking this thing, but you're missing the heart of it, man. Mm-hmm. Renny Harlin didn't want to make a bad movie or make a campy shark movie.
Yeah.
I reading his quotes or even listening to him talk on that fucking DVD special feature thing. Yeah. He was very sincerely making a movie, and that I think is the fucking missing ingredient from all these other modern tries.
Yeah, I think you want that. I love the big blockbusters of the 90s, not exclusive to the decade, but like movies like Twister and fucking Independence Day and Deep Blue Sea have these directors behind them.
The Mummy.
This fucking story means so fucking much to me and these characters, and it's like, of course, people watch that movie and largely dismiss it because it's either it's just a big old popcorn blockbuster or whatever, but it's like, I don't know, like fucking hella passionate people at the helm of them. And when I don't know if this fits here at all, but while we're talking about spoilers and things like this isn't even so much a spoiler, but something I liked about the ending. By the time the ending was rolling, you're realizing things are wrapping up. Like there's no like love story just in here arbitrarily. There could have easily been an attraction between Thomas Jane and Saffron Burrows.
I think it's hinted at.
It's hinted at a little bit. And that's that's fine. That's no problem. There's whatever. They're all human. But I just feel like a movie could get bogged down with that shit sometimes.
Absolutely.
It almost just feels like a requisite in sometimes, and you see it like in action movies and stuff like that too. Of just like, by the way, they're in love by the end. Of just like, but they were like killing people or fighting for their lives or something. But like, aren't they
traumatized? Don't they have some bigger things to deal with right now? Yeah. But thank you for saying that about the ending, because that reminded me of something I learned, that the ending was changed shortly before the theatrical release. So they sort of
not a good sign generally.
They sort of subvert the final girl trope, where you might expect, especially when you look at the poster of the movie, that it ends with just that lone scientist played by Saffron Burrows, Susan McAllister, if that matters.
That helps. Okay. I'll remember that over Saffron Burrows. No offense.
That's hard to say.
It's just
Rural juror.
McAllister. Mrs. McAllister.
But so it doesn't, and it turns out that I
never thought about that.
Her character doesn't make it through the events because a test audience thought that her character didn't deserve to carry on.
They didn't realize how much of a villain she was coming across as?
Correct. So about a month prior to the release, a test audience didn't like that Burroughs' character escaped the shark-infested water and lived through the there's a part where she sort of sacrifices herself to save other characters.
So that still happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
The audience perceived the character as the movie's villain because she was responsible for all of the research and experiments.
She's the human that set this into... Yeah.
Yeah. It's her brainchild.
But what do you think of that? Because, you watch the movie, certainly at the beginning, when I think back to that now, she has the whole speech about my grandfather, the Alzheimer's. Do you know what it's like? Do you know what this does to people? How many people have this? And then, it's set up as very, her intentions are righteous and stuff. And so, obviously, that is what clouds her stuff and look at where we're at now. But I don't know. Was that... It's interesting if the perception got away from them on her.
Well, I think that was intentional because there are a series of decisions that she actively makes in the movie where she puts people in danger because she doesn't want to lose the research that they've already gotten.
Don't start over, so to speak. Right?
They've got the fucking goo, and if they kill the sharks because they're dangerous, no more goo.
Yeah, and they got producing some good goo finally.
That causes her to make some less than stellar choices. So they had to do a 1-day reshoot, and they used computer-generated shit to change the ending.
So when you said different, I thought it was going to be like they came up with that whole sacrifice bit. But it's almost like regardless of how they got there, she lived through the sacrifice, which just seems a little wonky, right? Because it's very much like...
Well, I guess I don't know if it was... That's all the information I have.
Yeah, fuck it. It's interesting, and I just happened to notice on the thing that we don't have to dwell on it, but I was going to ask you about a sequel, but it seems like there was, and maybe it's a direct-to-video from 20 years later, but I wondered because they almost hinted at it when you were going to say, because towards the end, of course, it's like there's all these things along the way, mini problems, right? Oh, no, now it's this. And it's the thing at the end where they're like, oh, fuck, they might actually get out into, like, the whole, like, world or whatever. They might escape this facility.
And then go breed and make a whole species of fucking super smart sharks. And they kind of hinted at that. It
was like, ooh. So I wondered if you knew if there was ever, at the time, this sounds like way later someone cashed in on direct. That's almost like a different thing. Did you come across, was there talk of a sequel back in the day? And was it going to be called Deep 2C?
Oh, my God. I did not see anything like that. Not to say that there wasn't talk of it, but...
It sounds like a good movie.
There were... So, again, 99 this came out. A direct-to-video sequel, regrettably just called Deep Blue Sea 2.
They blew it. It's right there.
Released in 2018.
That's what... Yeah, it's just... I don't know.
And there's no hope of that being watchable at all, right?
I'm certain it's just like a vaguely similar plot at best. You're right.
Amazingly, also, Deep Blue Sea 3... July 2020.
They got cooking on it, man. Someone got the rights or something. That thing happened where they slipped away from whoever had them and like, oh, or the opposite. They were going to lose the rights. So they said, cool. And they got cooking.
So I pulled up the Wikipedia page for Deep Blue Sea 2, and I'll just read the plot synopsis.
That's a nice way to put it. It is a standalone sequel. That's a nice way to say this has nothing to do with the fucking Part 1 movie.
In the film, a shark conservationist is hired to consult on a top-secret project involving genetically enhanced bull sharks, I'll say, funded by a pharmaceutical billionaire. However, the highly intelligent super sharks turn on their masters and begin to pick them off one by one. It sounds like more of a fucking remake than a sequel.
Yeah, well, it's a standalone sequel is what it is. It's like the Evil Dead 2 thing where you just kind of do it over maybe, but different because it's different filmmakers and no one else is involved.
I'm not familiar with anybody attached to it. We're probably not going to watch that one, for the record.
I don't want to.
I will say, though, its flaws notwithstanding, it's a movie made of tropes. But sometimes tropes are tropes because they're effective. Yeah,
and I think most movies, like I said, even... Like, there's very few movies on this level... And you can argue whether they're good or bad, but there's very few movies I would say that get made at this level that aren't at least aware enough of some of the tropes to kind of subvert at least some of them enough to make it interesting. Like, right, there's very few just literal all the way, I guess it wouldn't be a literal cookie cutter, but, they're actual, in the sense of, like, the beginning, you think people are dead. They're not. You don't think same, there's enough fun along the way, so it's just like a thing of, like, there's familiar things happening and enough misdirects or whatever you want to call it, but I do think it's a fun genre thing, and for coming out like summertime, you know what I mean, you can just see where if you go into this with realistic expectations, I think it's a bang up job.
I mean, if you hear anything about this movie at all and it sounds good to you, it probably will be. But conversely, if you don't like horror movies, you don't like shark movies, and you don't even like campy movies, then I don't know, I would probably avoid it.
Yeah. And if it's not the second best shark movie, what is?
What is, man?
It sounds like extreme or something to say maybe, right? But,
Interestingly, in 2009, Renny Harlin did an interview where they asked him about... I guess he previously said that Deep Blue Sea was the hardest film he ever made, and they asked him if he still felt that way. It was an interview with Den of Geek. If anybody wants to Google this. But he said definitely. And he spoke to just the intensity of the water involved in the process. He says, maybe 80 shooting days we were standing in the water or we were underwater. Just the practicality of putting a wetsuit on in the morning, being in the water all day. Your script, all your paperwork has to be made of plastic paper. And things you wouldn't think would ever float, they float. So you put some water into the set, and all of a sudden the table is floating away, and all the furniture is going somewhere. Or then things you hope would float actually sink, and you can't find them anywhere. But he does say that he enjoyed it, and he loved the challenge of something like that. So that's nice.
It's got to be hard fucking work. And like I said, he came off of the Cutthroat Island. I do wonder if there's an element of like, well, like you said, it's do or die. That was more important than how much worse could it be. It is easy to look back at it and say that now, but I'm sure he was like, please let this go better than Cutthroat Island. But I think it did.
What did he do after?
I looked. It seems like he stayed busy, and I just maybe their less summer blockbuster, but he's staying busy. He did Skip Trace in 2016 with Jackie Chan and Johnny Knoxville that I've never seen, but why wouldn't I want to see it?
He worked with our boy John Cena in 2009 on 12 Rounds.
12 Rounds I never saw. That
I'm not interested in.
Might have been his last big one. I would look at that one. Yeah, he just, maybe they got to be more, it's called VOD these days. He's attached to the untitled Third Strangers film I'm being shown.
Oh, wait, is this the Rock movie? No, it's not. For a split second, I thought he worked with both John Cena and The Rock within a few years of each other. I was going to think that was funny. Different Hercules movie, though. Sorry, anyway.
Well, I'm out of shit.
Me too, man.
Deep Blue C. I give it a Deep Blue B.
Oh, boy. Well, if that isn't an ending, I don't know what is.
Sorry.
As Poet Laureate LL Cool J once said, deepest, bluest. My hat is like a shark's fin.
Is that what he said?
A few times.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Find us wherever you found us. Check us out if you're on stuff.
Oh, and let us know if we missed any obvious title tracks made by people that are in the movie. Bye.